Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Blackhand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
We did a couple of episodes talking about Indio from Sereno and Marky Quiros, and I think we mentioned one other Mexican Mafia member who's up for parole in the near future. But for me, it was a different process. I think it'll be the same process for any made guy that's ever going to get granted parole, if they ever do. If they're still active or dropouts, if they have high notoriety, or they're a PIC. PIC stands for a designation that is given to you by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. It stands for Public Interest Case. Anybody who's high notoriety, high profile, like say Wedo Sherm would be a PIC case, or Johnny Martinez, Crow from Plasencia would be a PIC case. Any high notoriety guy like Tablas from Florencia would be a PIC case. And that's kind of a effed up designation, because it means that you have a hard 19, you can never go to level 1, can't go to a dorm. There's all kinds of designations that come with that you have to have special transportation and escorts when you go to the doctor or whatever, outside of the prison wall. But it also means that the OPEC, CDC's public media branch, will also release information on your parole hearings, like they did on mine. They made everything public record, and as hard as we try to suppress it, just for security issues, not because I'm trying to hide anything, because my stuff's public record anyways, but it just makes it very difficult. So we're going to talk about that process, the political process, the emotional process, the topsy-turvy feelings and emotions and anxiety that you feel going to the board. It's not an easy thing. And you compare that to what the victims go through and the families that show up for the parole hearing. It's got to be the same. And I mean, multiply that 1,000 times. They lost a loved one. Then they have to drive up to the prison. They have to do the hearing. They're represented by a victim's advocate, which typically don't know anything about the case. All they know is what's fed to them. And they get it wrong. A lot of times they get it wrong. Every time a victim's advocate testified in my hearing, it was like, this man's the devil walking on earth, right? So you deal with all these things, right? For me, the process went over 10 years with ultimately 6 grants and 5 reversals from the governor's office, and I'd have to deal with that every time. And it was a typical process for everybody involved, not just me, but for the victims' families, for my family, but the emotional toll it takes is devastating. I remember that I had these patches of bald spots on my head, right? And I never knew they were there. My barber knew it was there. And somebody would say, hey, you got a scar in the back of your head. I said, well, yeah, I got a couple of scars, but I never saw them. And then at one point, I got a mirror. I was doing something. I was trimming the back of my neck, or something. I don't know. I was doing something. And I got a mirror, and I saw these patches, round spots, about 6 of them on my head, in the back of my head. One on the top of my head, about the size of a poker chip, right? And the other ones were like the size of a quarter, with no hair whatsoever. And I realized I was suffering from alopecia. That's like the spontaneous hair loss, right? Sometimes brought on by stress. And I went to the doctors, and they gave me some steroid cream to put on it. And this was during the process before my release. I lost hair, literally lost patches of hair. It was that stressful. I'm feeling anxiety right now, just talking about it, man, because it was such a rough deal, So
I recently came down from Ironwood State Prison. I'm at a detention facility here in Los Angeles, and just the decision to come down here was not easy, because it's not, as people often think, that it's a place of luxury or I receive all these benefits, because it's really not. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's more of a burden than anything. And I'm often questioned about my motivation. So, I can't really dissuade people from thinking what they're thinking. That's not my objective here. But the reality is that there's a huge trade-off. I mean, I leave a place where I have a job, which is the prison. I have a relative amount of freedom there. And just the whole decision to come down here is a huge trade-off. I mean, obviously, for some, it's the belief that I'm going to get out somehow by cooperating. And that hasn't worked in 20 years and over 5 parole grants. That has not been the case. In fact, the governor's questioned my motivations in his last reversal of my parole when he said that I have to prove that I'm not gaming the system. So somewhere in the belief of the governor's office and other individuals who believe the same thing is that I'm gaming the system, that somehow this is going to change the tide. But that's not the case, and that's not why I do this. I do this because I have an obligation. And to be quite frank, I don't care what people think anymore. I mean, I don't do it for their opinion or their approval of me or their disapproval of me. I do it because I have an obligation to the community. I'm asked to do these things for prosecutors and law enforcement that want me to come in and testify as an expert, and that's why I'm here. I'm testifying as an expert in a criminal case. And while I'm here, I work on other cases that are pending. So, I mean, it just isn't what people often believe. And I mean, you can see I'm in a stark cell. This is the cell I'm in. It's not luxurious. It is merely a prison cell at a different location where I'm stripped of everything. I have no TV. I have nothing really, other than my laptop, which I use to work. And this is my form of journaling. I record audio diaries and video diaries just to record my thoughts, and it's a good form of therapy for me. So I often participate in this. But one of the things, the most difficult thing was making the decision to come down here, particularly so close to my board date. So my board date is September 15th, and I have a lot of preparation to get in order before I go. And this is a total distraction. I come down here, I'm going to be down here for a few more days, and it takes me away from the board. And then there's a complexity of losing my job, going back to fish roll possibly, which is orientation, where I lose all my position where I'm housed. I lose my cell, and then I might lose my job, and then I have to be quarantined, because that's part of the policy. Anybody that leaves for more than one day gets quarantined. Thankfully, I rapid tested on the way out, and I believe I'm going to rapid test on the way back in, and we might be able to circumvent that process, but I'm not sure, because the prison policy is to quarantine anybody coming back into the facility. So that was a huge dissuader on my part, because I get put into an area where they have active gang members, which is C facility, and I'm housed in B facility, which is an SNY yard. So that weighed heavily on me. I mean, I'm just re-exposing myself to these guys, and they'll be able to see me, which is not really a problem, but being housed with them is a different matter, because they often pop the doors and there's accidents there, and I don't want to be one of those accidents where violence occurs, not on my part, but having it inflicted against me. So, and it's also a burden to my wife. It's very difficult for her when I come down here. I mean, it's great to see each other. We get to visit with officers monitoring in a room with cameras. But it's, having to get court clothes ready, having to prepare what I need, all that is a burden. It's a financial burden as well. I mean, it is what it is. Nobody pays for my laptop. Nobody pays for my court clothes. Nobody pays for anything I receive other than my wife and my family. Excuse me, I have allergies. And it was a huge thing for me to do this, because I've tried to reduce the amount of cases that I testify in because of this continuous questioning of the governor's office, of my motivations for doing this, and often he makes encouraging remarks like he appreciates my cooperation with law enforcement, and then in the very next paragraph he questions my motivations for doing so. So it's difficult. I mean, how do you address that? I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. If I cooperate, I'm gaming the system. If I don't cooperate, they'll say I'm manipulative, and that because the governor's reversals and his criticism, that I stopped doing it, and then it validates exactly what he's saying. But it's never been my motivation. I've testified to this a number of times, that I have an obligation to the community for everything I've done wrong, and I'll continue to do it as long as they ask me. So I'm not really overly concerned about what people think or what the governor's criticism is. Quite frankly, at this point, I don't think he's ever going to sign my parole, and if he does, then I'll be grateful and thankful, and I'm humbled by the opportunity to go to the board. But there's a reality that there are some politics involved in this case, and it just seems to be a case he doesn't like and he doesn't want to sign off on. So everything I do is really, I question how it impacts perceptions of the governor's office, and I have to worry about that, because that is a reality for me. Of course, I'm appealing the case, and this year I think we have solid grounds for our writ, which is already filed in the Superior Court. But these things are always weighing heavily on me. So when I make a decision to come down, it's what's my exposure going to be? You know, how is it going to be perceived by the governor's office? And that's really what it is. Excuse me. Another concern is handlers. You know, handlers are individuals who manage you and protect you and house you and address your needs while you're here, particularly those of the district attorneys, transportation, all that stuff back and forth to court. And one of my concerns was being transported with LAPD Metro SWAT. So I don't really know these individuals. Thankfully, one of my known handlers transported me in their vehicle, and the Metro team followed behind us. But I'll be returning with them, and I don't know how that's going to be, because I've transported with a number of different agencies, and some of them are very receptive to what I do, and some of them just don't like what I do. So, you know, there's always that. You know, there was another officer at the prison. Right before I left, he found out that I was going to court, and he says, well, why do you continue to bother these guys in prison? They already have life sentences. And he says, why don't you just live your life and forget about it and try to get out? Well, it's not just about getting out. I mean, my recovery and my rehabilitation, it far exceeds that, right? You know, if one day the governor signs and the courts release me, that's wonderful, because I want to get out. I'm not going to deny that. Which man doesn't want to get out of prison? I want to get out of prison. But I told this officer, well, I do what I do because I have a debt to the community. And he says, well, these guys got life, and it's like you're always poking them in the ribs, and going by testifying on them, you put all these guys in prison. And I told him, I says, I'm kind of shocked that you think that way, because you're law enforcement, you're a correctional officer, and you think this way. I said, but you know, these individuals, I have no antipathy for them, no hatred, no resentment. I'm not biased towards them. These individuals, I told them, well, these are Mexican Mafia associates and members that I testify against. And they're being held accountable for their actions. I'm just asked to come in as an expert, and 99.9% of the time I don't know the individuals. I'm just testifying as an expert in the case in a specific area of expertise, which is communications analysis, the Mexican Mafia, and the Sureños as they relate to the Mexican Mafia, or the Mexican Mafia and the prison subculture. So I tell him this, and I tell him, I says, it shocks me that you think this way, that I shouldn't testify, that they should be left alone. I says, so if you think this way about these individuals, then how would you feel about having them as neighbors, as they are now, committing murders, participating in conspiracies, trafficking narcotics into the prison, doing all the things they do now? How would you feel about that? And if that's the case, how would you feel about them being in your homes? And he didn't like it. He said, no. I said, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't have them anywhere around me. I said, or, how would you feel about them being your friends? And he says, no, I wouldn't do that. I says, well, then why the resentment towards me participating in these cases? I said, what if you were called to testify? What would you do? He says, I would go. It's my job. I says, and I told him also, this is my job. This is what I do. This is what I've done for 20 years. And this is just part of operating procedure for me. And the gangs understand that as well. If there's a case that requires an expert to come in, more often than not, I'm called in to come and testify. And that's just accepted consequence of their business now. And they understand that. But there is some resentment, and that perception and that mentality runs deep in the CDCR and some law enforcement. I mean, there's two schools of thought. Either I'm great for law enforcement, or I'm horrible and they shouldn't use me. And I can't combat against that. And every time I come down to testify, it renews that debate among CDC staff and obviously the governor's office. So that was a huge thing that weighed on my mind. In fact, the night before I transferred down here, I was sick to my stomach. I didn't know why. I thought it was something that I ate. So, but I was sick to my stomach. I couldn't sleep well. And I realized it was anxiety, for all the things I have to deal with. Because it's a huge thing, every year, being torn apart in the media and the internet and the governor finding validation for the reasons that he's denying my parole grants. So, I mean, it was really kind of a rough decision this year. But I'm here, obviously. I'm doing my thing. I've testified in the case, and my case is completed. It was a case where one gang member killed another gang member, and he had some Mexican Mafia ties. And I really don't want to go into the subject matter because it's not adjudicated yet. It's a pending trial. So that is why I'm here. So my job is done, and I'm going back to prison next week. But I thought it important to record my feelings and thoughts on this. I'm not resentful towards the governor's office or anybody who has a decision-making process in this. I understand it's a huge, huge decision to release me, and I appreciate the gravity of it. And what I've done, I accept full responsibility for what I've done. I am remorseful, and I have insight into the cause of the factors of my crime. That alone doesn't make me eligible for parole. I understand that. But there are a host of other things that are actually involved in this process. So I get it. It's a huge thing for the governor to release me. But if I base my decisions on what I think he wants to see or hear, then it's all about impression management. I'm going to try to, in their mind, I will try to present the best image possible for parole grant, and I don't want to do that. I am who I am. I've done some horrible things in my past, and I truly regret those actions. I wish that I had never done them or joined a prison gang or hurt anybody or victimized the community. But I cannot change who I am every time somebody renders an opinion, because if I do, then I'm just people pleasing, and I'm trying to make an impression on people, and I don't want to do that. The reality is, what you see is what you get. I have rehabilitated myself. I've been sober for almost 16 years now. I've been disciplinary free for 17, 18 years, something like that. And I've received 5 parole grants. If I was gaming the system, 11 commissioners from 3 different gubernatorial administrations, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jerry Brown, and Governor Newsom, would not have granted me parole. These are trained professionals that are there to determine my sincerity and the veracity of what I say. and I've been found suitable on these occasions unanimously. There's been no dissension among the commissioners, and I firmly believe that I'm going to receive a sixth parole grant on September 15th. So, for me, this is just my obligation. And as long as I'm alive, if they ask me to do it, I'll do it. I don't seek out these cases. I don't ask for them. They come to me, and I readily agree. I've never refused a case. And I cooperated in hundreds of cases. In fact, I'm working on cases now, and I'll get into that in a minute. But this is how I feel. This is the reservation that I had coming down here. There's always a negative blowback from this kind of thing, and it's subtle. A lot of people don't understand it. They believe I'm living a life of luxury, that I'm in Big Bear somewhere, and that I have a big screen TV and video games and all these things. It's just not that way. I'm in a place where they have disturbed individuals who come in for the street, mostly transients. This is a temporary housing unit, and it gets crazy sometimes. Like last night, I couldn't sleep at all. I'll try to record some of that racket that goes on here all night long. They're asleep right now because they've been up kicking the doors and screaming all night. But it is a madhouse. Naked individuals spreading fecal matter, plugging the toilets and overflowing the toilets, and it is really a madhouse. It's not the stability and the routine and the structure of a prison environment. This is really where people are coming in and coming down from intoxication, and they have psychological and mental problems, and I feel great empathy for them, but it just makes living very difficult, to say the least. So, all right, that's this recording, and I'll be back later. So, the environment in court was a little different this time. With COVID restrictions, the jury usually sits in the jury box where there are like 16 seats, and they have 12 jurors and 4 alternates. But they were spread throughout the courtroom now, and they had numbered placards in the gallery where the jury was all spread throughout the courtroom, obviously for social distancing purposes. And there were plexiglass partitions up in front of the stand, the witness stand, when I went up, and in various locations throughout the court. And it was different. It was different. The environment was different. It was in front of a judge that I had testified in front of before. It was in the criminal courts building in downtown Los Angeles, and part of what I do is identify with the jury. I look them directly in the eye when I respond. I don't respond to the prosecutor or the defense attorneys when they ask me questions. I turn towards the jury because they are the weighers of evidence, and I want them to see into my eyes and to be able to discern that what I'm saying is true, and to be able to evaluate the veracity of my testimony. So it was kind of difficult this time, gazing across the entire courtroom and identifying certain jurors that were taking notes and speaking with them and speaking with other jurors in my testimony. So it's not you're engaging the juror in testimony, but you're speaking to them when you receive a question like, Rene Enriquez, how many times have you testified in this case, and what is your background and expertise in this field? So you'll start looking at jurors and you're discussing your response to them. So I just learned that over the course of my life, that when somebody looks you in the eye and they speak to you directly, it means something. I mean, if they're being evasive and looking away and looking down and fidgeting and not maintaining eye contact, it makes you a little suspicious. Why is this person not looking at me? Why are they being evasive in their responses? Why are they not answering the question? So I take great care into addressing the jury. I've not been taught this. It's just something, it's just basic human interaction when you're dealing with people, that you want to look them in the face. So the case was really quite simple. I mean, I was only on the stand for like 3 hours. And it was about the rules of the gang in the Mexican Mafia that enforces the rules, about telling, about ratting. and what are the repercussions for this. And I've had a lot of blowback from my cooperation in cases. So there goes one of the crazies who's waking up. Yeah, it is just tame right now, but it is. I've experienced a lot of repercussions, threats against my family, threats against my life. I mean, there are continuous threat assessments that are made by various departments that intercept these threats, and it's burdensome for, just the overweighing thought of people wanting to kill you, and that weighs on every gang member's mind. If I cooperate, there are going to be repercussions. So this is a thing that happens like 2 o'clock in the morning, kicking on doors and screaming, and their nudity and their masturbation. You see it all, and that's one of the things that makes me not want to come down here, because it's a madhouse. This doesn't happen in prison. I'm sure there are locations where they have inmates who have mental problems and mental health issues, and it's the nature of prison. But in these jails like this, I mean, these guys coming in with withdrawals, crying, pleading, trying to talk to you. I mean, I've had a couple of guys try to talk to me through the window. I just walk away. I don't want to engage anybody. I'm not here for social purposes. I'm here to work. But it makes it difficult to come to locations like this. And like I said, this is tame. This is nothing right now. This is I could sleep through this. And I have earplugs that I use, and they get them from the range, from the gun ranges they have here. So the little foam ones you put in your ears, and it stops 80% of the noise. So this is pretty tame. Anyways, my experience in the trial this time was really minimal. I came in to testify as an expert on the rules of the Mexican Mafia and informing, and what are the repercussions, and why do people refuse to testify once they've given statements, and I just told the truth. I mean, you get killed for this kind of stuff. People often get whacked for it, and there's a stigma on cooperating with law enforcement, and that's a huge stigma. It's a stigma I carry because I've testified in so many cases. But like I said, those people's opinions of me they're not people who were involved in my life. They're not people who I value and cherish and respect. Those are just individuals who have impressions about me, and I can't change that. So that's why I continue to do this, because it is really what I've taken on. It's not just an obligation. It's become my calling, really, to give back to the community, and it's really what I want to do is give back to the community. I don't get any reward for it. I don't get paid for testifying. I don't get these massive benefits. Do I get to eat once in a while? Sure, but I get to eat in prison too. I can order takeout food there when they have special sales. I get commissary. Okay, they're waking up now. It reminds me of that movie I Am Legend. Especially when they're like this, they're yelling back and forth right now, they're waking each other up. In I Am Legend, there's a scene where all these zombies or mutants are asleep, and he doesn't want to make noise, and he's being very quiet because it's very dangerous. And once one of them wakes up, all of them wake up, and they start going off. You can hear it now. This is pretty tame right now, but it'll start roaring up later. But that's what it reminds me of, I Am Legend. When he creeps into the warehouse and his dog's in there, and he wants his dog to be quiet, and then he ends up waking up these zombies or mutants, and they come after him. It's like they feed off of each other. It's like a symbiotic thing, and they start responding, and oh my God, when it gets bad, it gets horrible. It's just unbearable. But I deal with it for short periods of time, and this is what it is. I'll be thankful to go back. It's kind of like a mental hospital. And then the routine here is pretty crazy. Breakfast is at 3 in the morning. Sick calls at 2:30 in the morning. Court lines wake up is at 4. They get on this PA and they wake everybody up. And then at 5 they roll everybody out for court line. And then lunch is at 11 and dinner's at 4. And food is horrible. I mean, horrible. It smells like wet dog. There's only 2 meals that I can tolerate. Well, 3. There's bologna sandwiches. There's Salisbury steak, which is congealed, all the gravy. And there's these cheese enchiladas that they have they're palatable, but it's not very good. It's not very good. So, I mean, the trade-off is pretty bad. But I get to see my kids and my family, and you know, I can see them at the prison now. They've opened up visits, but it's convenient for them because I'm down here in LA and I'm not far away. So, yeah, they're all starting to wake up. They do a suicide walk here every 30 minutes too. They have this little beeper. They come to the door, and they do these checks. You know, it's to maintain the safety of everybody, really, because it's been proven within the first 72 hours is the highest rate of suicide for most people that are incarcerated. So they have these guys that walk every 30 minutes, and there's a camera in my cell. It's right up here. It points down at my restroom, my toilet. So there's really no privacy. When I go to shower, I'm taken to a location not far from here in an adjacent pod, because if it has to be empty first. I can't be there with anybody else for my protection. And this is it. So you got a little taste of the madness. You know, this is where I'm at, and this is what it's like. It's jail. You know, this is not a luxurious place. It's not travel, as the governor and the psychologist, like I get perks like travel in clothes and other things like notoriety. That irked me, you know, because I don't do this for a cheeseburger. I don't do it for clothes. The clothes I have, I'm wearing cargo shorts and a white t-shirt. And this I brought from prison. I had this in prison. It's a Russell t-shirt. But the cargo shorts, you know, I have to dress as the other inmates here, like I came in from the streets, because then if they see me in prison blues, they'll know I came from prison and I'm here cooperating in the case. So it's really just operational security that I wear these clothes, right? So I have a couple pairs of shorts and a couple t-shirts, and I dress normally as other arrestees are. So those things, those perks that the governor talks about, that the psychologist talks about in my psych report, are really, it is a mischaracterization of what this really is. You know, it's I think somebody has it in their head that I'm living in luxury, that I have all these benefits, but really, it's a poor trade-off for what I have at the prison. I mean, prison's prison. It's not a luxurious place either, but I have a TV, I have a radio, I have a typewriter. I come out of my cell every day. I can use the phone. You know, here I have just my laptop and the phone. There's a phone on the wall, which is a prison phone. Right there. You'll see it. The sink is not luxurious. And the cells are filthy. This place is filthy. It has just a horrible stench of unwashed bodies and feces and dirty socks, and it reeks. I had to come in here and clean this place from top to bottom because it's horrible. I mean, there's all matter of substance on the walls, and you could use your imagination for that. And I have to clean it because I'm not going to live in it. So, you know, it's not a nice place. So, anyways, that's my recording. Bye bye.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots.